yo, welcome back to another video on Kojo's Trick Lab.
It is I. It's
me, Omid. So in today's video, I'm going to be running through one of my most requested tutorials ever, which is Gainer Scissor, because, oh, it just looks so good with the... First of all, if you're watching this video and you don't know what a Gainer Scissor is, I'm sorry, you just don't know what the most beautiful trick in the world is. It's just the best trick ever. But basically a Gainer Scissor is a Gainer Arabian with an inside round kick, point toes, and there's lots of going on. This, alright, just this. Top draw flip, grade A flip, and I'm going to teach you how to do it, alright. So we need to talk about prereqs for this trick, because I know it looks mental. It does look mental, let's keep it real. But when you break it down, it's actually a pretty simple trick. I pretty much just think of it as an Arabian. It's a Gainer Arabian, and you just need to run through the prerequisites enough, and you won't really have any troubles learning it. It might take a little while to make it look steez and make it arched and make it look like you're actually Edward Scissor legs, but just give it a minute, give it a couple of reps, and it'll get there. So for the prereqs, what you're gonna need is Gainer, kind of self-explanatory. You probably shouldn't be doing Gainer Scissor if you can't do Gainer. Gainer Arabian, because that's essentially what this trick is comprised of. And then the final prereq for this trick is Gainer Arabian landing in a mega kind of stance. But not your normal mega as if you were going to miss leg out of it. You need to be doing mega as if you're going to vanish out of it. So that looks something a little bit like this. So before you even start to think about doing a Gainer Scissor, you need to make sure that you're 100% comfortable with all of these prerequisites. The reason being because the scissor is actually the easiest part. The scissor is essentially just this. You don't need to learn the scissor part. The scissor part is just straightening your leg pretty much. It's not quite as simple as that, but you get the gist. If you can do Gainer Mega landing as if you were going to vanish, then you can do Gainer Scissor. But before you start complicating it by trying to do scissor and like throw yourself off axis by doing the scissor, you need to make sure that you're comfortable with the height that you're getting and you're consistently getting the same height every time you do the Gainer Mega. And you also need to make sure that you're comfortable landing with your left leg underneath you. Now, as I demonstrated in the Gainer Mega example, it's really important that you're not over rotating the twist and you're not over rotating the flip or under rotating the flip. So as I say, don't complicate it by trying to add the scissor just yet. Make sure you're comfortable with the prereqs before moving on. A good way to be building up to this trick is just by doing it on trampoline. If you don't have access to trampoline, maybe an air track. If you don't have any of those things, then I wouldn't really recommend using a mat, but you can try using a mat if you're really not comfortable trying it. Build it up and make sure that you're completely comfortable, because it can be a strange rotation, so it will just take a little bit of time to gain that control so that you can land comfortably and confidently on that left leg. I think there's something super special about this trick. It's something that's really captured my heart over the years, and it's still one of my favorite tricks. And the reason being is because of the aesthetic possibilities and capabilities of this trick. But having said that, if you're looking at your Gainer Scissor attempt while learning it or while trying to improve it, don't worry too much, because when learning this trick, it's more important that you're doing it safely and controlled and then adding the aesthetic value after the fact, because it can be a tentative trick to be landing on one leg with your left leg directly underneath you. So make sure safety comes first and then build on the aesthetic as time goes by. So before we actually get into the technicalities of this trick, I do want to mention that there are tons of ways that you can learn this trick, think about this trick, and actually execute this trick. Slight adjustments to different parts of the trick can mean that it can look completely different. First things first, you need to be thinking about the takeoff. It's super important that you're taking off from a controlled but powerful setup, because with this trick, the more height you can get and the more control you have, the better. The higher it is, the easier it's going to be to actually get the variation out and then land safely, and the more controlled you are, the smaller the risk of injury. So once you're actually leaving the ground and you're in the air, my main focus is stopping and resisting against that twisting rotation. I find it quite natural to want to rotate more so than necessary for this trick. Now, the way I combat this is by using the swing and the scissor leg. I tense the swing leg so that it's straight, and I tend to point my toes. What this means is, once I begin to rotate and the rest of my body initiates the Arabian rotation, as long as I keep my swing and scissor leg in place at that point, the rest of my body will pivot, flip and rotate around that leg, as long as I can keep that solid and keep it strong, because it actually works as a counter rotation type thing. There's lag essentially. It stops you while it's over here, stops your body from continuing all the way over here, and then you can really exaggerate the landing leg kicking over in an arcing motion so that you can get that really cool aesthetic of two legs kind of kicking in different directions. Now at this point, you've actually begun the Arabian rotation. Your right leg should be held all the way back over here between your head and your shoulder, and then this means that it opens your hips while your left leg is kicking over, and it means that you naturally arch your back. Now, you can't fight it. You need to allow your body to go with the natural movement that's happening here. By kicking your legs in different directions, it means that it does it for you naturally. It will open your hips and it will arch your back, so don't worry too much about really trying to exaggerate that, especially while learning this trick. Once you've learned it, then change whatever you want. Make it look as nuts as possible. I'm trying to see someone's legs literally fly off. But until you've actually learned this trick and you're comfortable with it, then don't start trying to exaggerate any part of it. Your arms and your shoulders, as I said, while you're leaving the ground, they're going to be coming up and over your head to initiate that Arabian. Instead of trying to flip and twist the same way I would in like a full, for example, I think about just trying to do it directly over my head. So I think arms, shoulders come up, and it kind of pulls all down the side of my chest here because I'm trying to stretch so much to go directly over, as opposed to thinking about it as if it was a normal twist. Now this means that you're flipping more, the scissor can be really exaggerated, and then it leads the trajectory of your body to kick directly over you in an arcing motion. Now it may not be done directly over your head, but that's the goal in my opinion. You want it to be directly over, but the scissor be over here. I'm just not so much of a fan of the Gainer scissors that go too much around the side. And while doing this with your arms, it just means that it minimizes travel, which maximizes height, and it also minimizes the twisting rotation, because as I said, this is not a trick that you're going to want to unintentionally over rotate the twist, because it just spells trouble for your knees, your ankles, your spine, your hips, your neck, your lips. You just don't want to do it, trust me. So at this point, you're pretty much 3/4 of the way through the trick. You should be starting to think about landing pretty soon. If you want to really exaggerate the scissor at this point, that's when, instead of just holding it back in that position, you can think about actively pulling it the opposite direction. And then once you're more and more comfortable with the trick, then you can pull it sooner and sooner until both legs, from the get-go, you're pulling in different directions like so. Because for me, I don't think about pulling it towards my head until I'm actually initiating the Arabian part of the trick. But I think the safest way to learn it is to only start pulling it gradually once you start getting more and more comfortable with it. So at this point, you should be trying to think about landing the trick. And if not, then you do you. Land on your chest, do what you gotta do, man. Trust me, I've done that before. It's not a pleasant experience. I genuinely thought I was gonna snap my legs into smithereens. So don't actually do that. The reason the arc of the kicking leg and the landing leg is so important is because you need to land with that leg pretty much directly underneath you, because if that leg is landing too far in front of you, you're going to land on your bum, and if it's landing too far behind you, you're gonna struggle a little bit. So you need to make sure that you're feeling this out, hence why the prereqs are so important. You need to be able to land on that mega leg comfortably without too much twist rotation, without it going too far behind you, because otherwise you're gonna land on a completely straight leg. Whatever you gotta do to make sure that you're comfortable, just do that, because safety is of the utmost importance with this trick. I find myself saying that a lot in all of my tutorials. I think I just do sketchy tricks, honestly. Just seriously, trust me on this one. You need to make sure that you're confident with this trick. And in terms of spotting, I just let my head do the natural thing. It's going to try and look over my shoulder while doing the actual Arabian, and then once I've initiated the scissor, I try and spot where the scissor is until I need to spot where the ground is to land on my feet. The $1,000,000 question: how on earth do you land this trick? Now, it's not actually that difficult. What I really focus on is embracing with the balls of my feet as I'm about to land on the plant leg. I do allow my heel to touch the ground, but then as that happens, I almost instantaneously lift it up again so that I can pivot on that landing leg. This isn't always necessary, but because I land the trick the same pretty much every single time, I just kind of allow my heel to hit the ground. The second that hits the ground, it's a cue for it to then lift up again and for me to pivot on that landing leg. That means there's no twisting, rotation, pressure going on any of my joints because I'm just kind of spinning on the ball of my foot. Otherwise, you want to make sure that you're landing with the rest of your body as solid as possible, moving in the direction of travel. Don't ever land on a straight leg. Always make sure that your leg is bent. It doesn't have to be too extreme, but just so that you can actually embrace the landing and then either pivot or then walk out of it. The reason that I've been talking about having that left leg coming and landing pretty much directly underneath you is because if it's not, you're not going to be able to pivot when your foot is like 1.5 foot in front of you. You need to have it underneath you so that you can pivot with the rest of your body. That's that really. So one of the major issues that I see with people trying this trick tends to just be trying to get the scissor out too early or pointing it too low. So I always think that my right foot needs to be, in an ideal world, between my head and my shoulders. Like if I could actually put it there, then I would, but I just don't have that kind of flexibility, honestly. My hamstrings are the tightest they've ever been. But just really make sure that you're working out the timings of this trick. If the aesthetic isn't working for you and it doesn't look great, then it's probably because you're rushing things, or you're trying to do the scissor way too late when you're just about to land. So you need to try and find that happy medium. If you followed all of the steps that I've given you and it's still not working for you, then just try and tweak little bits, because to the best of your ability, you may be trying to do the things that I'm outlining, but your body may not be reflecting what you're trying to do. So make sure you're filming it and studying it and seeing what you're doing different to what I'm doing, or somebody else that has a Gainer Scissor that you like. And then the other major issue that I see with people is just landing sketch on this trick. Just make sure you've built that base of prerequisites to the strongest it can be, and then you should be good to go. But yo, listen, I hope you enjoyed today's video and I hope it was useful. You've been watching Kojo's Trick Lab. I'm Omid. Peace.